Hello, my name is James Hogan, and the title of my message today is The Apocalypse and the 2016 Presidential Election. And what that is going to be about is I want to talk about the future of America. Where is America going? You know, nowadays it's a very popular subject to talk about end time prophecy, signs of the times, world events that seem to relate to end time prophecy. The subject of the end of the world or the apocalypse is something that we see more and more in television shows and in movies that seems to have captured the interest of people, of audiences around the world. And we even see, let's take a look at some of these movies, recent movies and television shows that have come out on this subject. The Mad Max series of movies, The Road, I Am Legend, Waterworld, The Walking Dead, the Terminator series of movies, Terminator Judgment Day, The Hunger Games, Divergent, Armageddon. These all seem to touch on, they're not all biblical, but they all seem to touch on this idea and this interest in the end of the world, or, some cataclysmic change that where the world would become totally different as a result. And so nowadays we hear a lot of preachers, pastors and preachers more and more talking about end time prophecy and how world events that are happening connect with end time prophecy. And so this is definitely something that is in the consciences of the people that people are interested in and people would like to know more about. And so here's a passage of scripture that I think a lot of people are familiar with that it goes along those lines that has to do with that. It's Matthew chapter 24, verses 6 through 8. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things shall come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And then there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. And it goes on for quite a few passages of Scripture talking about all of the different things that are going to happen that Jesus was talking to his disciples about, that he said would happen in the end times. Now, of course, some of those things that he talked about actually happened during that generation, but there were other things that he spoke of that have to do with his return. He talked about, end time events in the world, cataclysmic events in the world, and ultimately about his return. And so I believe that a lot of people are interested in this subject and interested in knowing about these things. And I believe that a lot of people are concerned about the direction that our nation is taking, a nation that historically has been a Christian nation. People are concerned, have we been experiencing events here that would be, that you could describe as the judgment of God? Are future events coming to America that would be, that could be described as the judgment of God? So this is something that I believe is on people's minds. But let me tell you a little bit about myself before I continue with my message. I'm going to do a series of messages on this subject. But once again, my name is James Hogan, Reverend James Hogan. I'm originally from Germantown, Wisconsin, which is near Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I graduated from an interdenominational Christian Bible college in 1987 near Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then returning to Wisconsin in 1989, I rejoined a church in my hometown area and got started in the construction industry, learned some of the different trades in the construction industry. And then in 1990, I moved to Upper Michigan, Menominee, Michigan, and in 1995, I opened a Christian youth center and have operated that Christian youth center for approximately 20 years. Recently we had a fire, so it's not in operation. The building where we were at is not in operation at this time, but we're still continuing our outreach, and we're looking to rebuild the building or get a new building in the near future. So I'm still involved in the youth ministry, youth outreach. I still am operating my own business. I've been operating my own construction business now for about 25 years. And I have also worked in nursing home ministry for more than 20 years. And so I've had the opportunity to see the changes that have been occurring in our society, in our culture, from different vantage points. And so those are experiences that have impressed me about the need for America to get back to the faith of our forebears, of the early Americans, of the founding fathers and the Pilgrims and the early Americans who settled this nation. And so we see these things that are being discussed in radio programs and in cable TV shows. There's talk about secret societies, planning a new world order, television shows about conspiracy theories along these lines, and different issues that relate to end-time prophecy and apocalyptic type events as we see in the scriptures. And so I think I believe that the number one issue, to me, in my mind, the number one issue about this upcoming presidential election is the need to return to spirituality in America. For example, Christian morals and Christian teachings were the basis of the educational system of America, of our nation, for actually more than 300 years, if you go back to the landing of the Mayflower. More than 300 years, and it's only in recent decades that has been overturned and that has been changed by certain organizations and that are against, really seem to be against Christianity. They seem to be atheistic organizations, and also along with the decisions of the United States Supreme Court. We've only seen this change happen within recent times, and the end result on our culture has been very negative. You know, if you want to go into the details in future messages, I'll go into the details. But we see that in America, we are seeing a change. We're seeing greater secularism, more and more secularism. We're seeing anti-Christianism. We see government policies that are changing, and government policies and atheist groups that are seeking to exclude Christian expression in different parts of society. We see a demoralization that's happening. We see the breakup of the traditional family. We see an increase of social problems, such as overcrowding in our prisons, our nation's prisons and our nation's jails. We see a greater separation or disparity between the poor and the middle class and the rich. We see a great push for socialism, larger and larger government, more and more government control. And we even hear people speaking, experts or so-called experts, speaking about what they believe is an imminent banking and economic collapse in America, which I hope and I pray does not happen. So we see all of these things that are occurring, but what can be done to change these things, these negative trends? Can there something be done to change these things that are happening, to turn things around, to return to a nation of faith and a nation of conscience, to return to the beliefs of our forebears and the founding fathers. And I believe that things can be done. I believe that this upcoming election, 2016 election, is a very key point in history, in the future of America, and perhaps the future of the world as well, because America has so much influence on things that happen in other parts of the world. But, there's so many things that have changed over time, such as the educational system. There's things that most Americans are not even aware of nowadays because it is no longer taught in the public schools. Like, for example, of all the people who are watching this video, how many people know the history of the New England Primer, that it is the longest standing textbook that has ever been used in America, that it was used to teach children how to read from a completely biblical standpoint. It was used for more than 200 years. History majors in college, in public colleges, are not taught anything about that, as far as I know. According to one history major that I spoke to, there's so many people that have no idea that the New England Primer ever existed. So we need to know about true history, the true history of America. So many things are being whitewashed or brushed aside or eliminated from these secularized textbooks used in public education nowadays. But how many people watching this video are aware that in the recent decades, in the latter part of the 20th century, that the Supreme Court decisions, such as not allowing school-led prayer in the public schools and permitting evolution to be taught, really removing the Bible and Christian expression from the public schools, the legalization of abortion on demand. How many people are aware that these things that have been promoted and pushed by certain organizations working in the court system, that these are the basic pillars of communism? They're the basic tenets that were put into place by Vladimir Lenin when the Soviet Union was first created as the first communist nation in the world. Very few people are aware of that. Very few people are aware of this total, complete flip-flop, because, flip-flop in the view of where Christianity belongs, its place in American society, because people have accepted this agenda that has been pushed really actually by atheistic organizations, thinking that, believing the things that have been said by these atheistic organizations, that this is all constitutional. Well, it's a reinterpretation is what it is. It's their reinterpretation. It has nothing to do with the original intent of the founders or what they believed, or the precedent, more than 300 years of historical precedent of being a Christian nation founded on Christian beliefs and principles. And so my time is getting short. I'm going to continue on in another message about this. But we have to realize that when the founding fathers talked about God and the blessings of liberty and the Creator in the Declaration of Independence and in the U.S. Constitution, we have to realize that these men were talking about moral absolutes, that we have been granted unalienable rights by the Creator, by God, and that they were talking about moral absolutes that come from the Bible, moral absolutes that do not change, that they are unchangeable, as unchangeable as God. And so we need to return to faith in America, and this is why I have made a decision, one of the reasons why I have made a decision to run for president. Thank you.